Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Great Leadership. My guest today, Uri Levine, co-founder of Waze, which was acquired by Google for $1.1 billion. He's also the first board member and investor of Move It, which is basically Waze for public transportation that was also acquired by Intel for $1 billion in 2020. Now he does a lot of advisory work with startups. He's an investor, and he has a great book out, which came out in 2023 called Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution. And today we're going to be going over a few things, starting off with the story of Waze, which I think is very interesting. We'll look at entrepreneurship, not just in our personal lives as individuals, but also how it applies inside of companies, this concept of intrapreneurship. We will also look at the balance, the pursuit of disruptive innovation, with balancing that with kind of the day-to-day aspects of what you just need to do to get your business running. We'll talk a little bit about passion, the importance of failure, decision-making when faced with high risk, and then towards the end, in the Leaders Toolkit section, we're going to talk about strategies for hiring and firing. So having said all that, Uri, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I'm really excited to talk to you. The story of Waze is a very interesting one. And it's funny, I told one of my friends that I was going to be talking to the co-founder of Waze, and he's like, "Oh my God, tell him that I love that app. It's the best app ever." And I get that from a lot of people, but a lot of people don't know the history and the story of Waze. So I thought it would be really interesting to start there with how it came from concept into becoming this company that was sold for $1.1 billion, because there's a lot of really cool stuff in that story.
So you're right. A lot of people don't know, and they don't even know the magic of Waze. And the reality is that, and for a second, I'm going to go into the generalization of that, right? So think of all the products that you want to think of, right? From searching Google to using Waze, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. All those companies started as a startup, right? They started their journey with a mission and with a vision, and they tried to figure out product market fit. And product market fit is really simple. Figuring out product market fit means that you create value to your customers. Now, if you don't figure out product market fit, you will die. As simple as that. You never heard of a company that did not figure out product market fit. But once a company figure out their product market fit, they don't change that anymore, right? So we are searching Google today the same way that we search Google for the first time in our life. We're using Waze the same way that we used Waze for the first time in our life, or Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp or Netflix or whatever, or Uber, whatever it is, right? So once a company figure out product market fit, they don't change that anymore. What happened beforehand, we have no idea. Right. And it's a long journey, right? For Waze, it was actually 4 years until they get there. For Microsoft, it was 5 years until they got there. For Netflix, it was 10 years until they figure out their
Yeah.
product market, right? So each one takes a long journey to figure that out. And only once you do that, then people start to hear about you. And obviously, they have no clue about the history. So we started Waze in 2007. And that was with the vision that we're going to help drivers to avoid traffic jams. And the magic of Waze is crowdsourcing everything, not just traffic information, but the map data itself. So when we started, the map was a blank page. There was absolutely nothing on the map. And we gathered the GPS data from the device of the drivers, and we actually put this GPS data on the blank page on the map, right? And we took that from a lot of drivers, and that generated the map. Now, initially, the map is obviously incomplete, but then we enabled map editing tools that people can provide us with street names and house numbers and points of interest to make the map fairly complete. Now, it was a long while until we actually got to the level that it's becoming good enough. And the good enough is where you figure out product market fit.
Hmm.
Now, we will go back to product market fit because at the end of the day, product market fit have one metric: retention.
Yeah.
Look, it's really simple. If we define product market fit as creating value to your customers, then when you create value, they will come back. And guess what? If they are not coming back, that means that you are not creating value.
Yeah.
That is always the longest and hardest journey of all new products in all startups, figuring out product market fit.
Yeah, and most of the
And for
people who
Waze,
are so most of the people who are listening and watching are probably not entrepreneurs. They're probably employed full time in an organization. Maybe they're mid or entry level leaders. Some even senior executives. But I think even the concept of product market fit is relevant for everybody because everybody has a customer. Whether your customer is internally as an employee or whether you're creating a product or service externally for a customer. So I love the concept of product market fit, which I think is relevant for everybody. But in your case, for example, and I know you have more you were going to jump on, but I just wanted to ask at the time when you created Waze, what were those Tom guides, right? The what were those devices that people used to get in their cars? You could rent
Tom,
a
Tom,
car, Tom, yeah.
Tom,
So there was something out there that was doing some GPS already as far as traffic, right?
you're right. And we had a very different agenda. We wanted to help the drivers on their daily commute. So when you're going to the office, you don't need TomTom device. You don't need navigation. You know how to get there. You go there every day, so obviously you know how to get there.
Yeah.
But we figure out that this is going to be the use case that we would like, everyday use. And for that, we need to have accuracy of what's going on the roadways.
Hmm.
What's different today than yesterday? Where are the speed traps? How is traffic compared to yesterday? How long it's going to take you to get there? Is there an alternative route that is going to bring you there faster and so forth? And that was the focus of Waze. So it ended up to be a very simple application, which anyone can use, right? So simplicity is definitely a key for usage. And most people, if you ask them how often do you use Waze, they will tell you every day.
Yep.
And this is exactly what we try to achieve. We try to basically create a tool that creates value for you every day. Obviously, we make it simple, we make it cool, we make it a lot of other things, but simple was critical. Cool was a derivative of simple. Very different than the rest of all driving applications they are, right? Even if you compare that to Here We Go or Apple Maps or Google Maps, then they are trying to address multiple use cases. They're trying to address pedestrian and public transportation and searching for information and additional information. And the result is that they are way too complex for daily commute. And we ended up with a single use case that turns out to be the winning use case because this is what most people are doing.
Hmm.
They commute every day.
Yeah. No, and simplicity, I think, is key there. Simple concept, but implementation obviously more challenging there. So
I,
how did
I
it
call that the first rule of complexity.
first rule of
If you
complexity?
want If you want the front end to be simple for the user, then trust me, the back end is going to be very complex.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to change direction there about TomTom, but I think you were talking a little bit more about the history of Waze and how it came to be.
So it's actually started from two different angles. For me, it was the eureka moment was somewhere in 2006 that we were on a family vacation with different family members and up in the northern part of Israel. And when it was time to go back home, back then we had like four little kids, and it took us a long while until we get everything settled and ready to go. And everyone else left before we did. Now, Israel is a small place. Back then, there was only two routes that you can return back from the northern part back to Tel Aviv. And I called up the rest of the drivers and asked them, how is traffic like on your route? And turns out that one of the routes was actually very crowded and the other one was not that bad. And I realized that all I need is someone ahead of me on the road to tell me what's going on. And so this is where the crowdsource idea came from. But this is also, if you think about it, we create a social network of drivers that the drivers help the rest of the drivers. And it's nearly the only application that when you're using it and you're using it for your own good, you create more value to the rest of the people simply by using it. Because what happened is that when you automatically report, right? So Waze knows how fast you are going anywhere, and based on that, decides what traffic jams are. you are helping the rest of the drivers to avoid traffic jams. And the impact of that is dramatically more than the value that you get. So we were able to create sort of a paid forward behavior. You are paying it for the drivers behind you, and the drivers ahead of you are actually creating value for you. And that creates a perfect behavior that adds value to everyone. Now, we didn't think about it from the beginning, but we realized that this is exactly the case, right? So people are reporting that there is a speed trap in order to help the drivers behind them. And they're doing that because someone ahead of them is going to do exactly the same for them.
I learned something absolutely insane today. 96% of the people who watch videos on this channel are not subscribed. Are you one of those people? Please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It'll take you 1 second. It helps me a lot, and you'll get access to more videos just like this one. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Sounds so simple. And today, how many people are using Waze?
So realizing that Waze was acquired back in 2013 and I left it the day after to build more startups. So I don't know exactly, but I think that it's around 700 million drivers
That's
are
crazy.
actually having Waze and using it.
That's crazy. Now, at the core of all of this, one of the things that you talk about the book is solving a problem. And I think a lot of people spot problems, but we don't really do anything after we spot that problem. So, what's the process to kind of go through? Because there are a lot of people, again, not necessarily entrepreneurs, but people who are inside of organizations who might spot problems as far as maybe how they interact with customers or a gap as far as a product that exists. And we spot the problem and we say, there it is, but then we don't do anything with it. How do you go? Well, first, how do you spot the right problem? Because you could spot 10, 20, 30 of them. So how do you spot the right problem? And then once you do spot it, what do you do?
So, the good news is that there are a lot of problems. The bad news is that there are a lot of problems. Right? That at the end of the day, look, and this is really, people often ask me, why did I call this book Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution? The entrepreneurship journey is about value creation. You are trying to change the world, you're trying to create value, you're trying to make an impact. The simplest way to create value is solve a problem. That's the simplest way. But actually, what's going to happen is that if you focus on the problem is going to serve as the North Star of your journey. And when you have a North Star, then you increase the likelihood of being successful. As simple as that. You're going to make less deviation from the course and you are more likely to become successful. But also, the story that you are about to tell is way more compelling. Just imagine that we will be here in 2007 and I will tell you I'm going to build an AI crowdsource based navigation system. And you're going to say, oh, yeah, very interesting. But you don't care. If I will tell you I'm going to help you to avoid traffic jams, then you do care. And so when your customers care, they are going to help you to become successful. And the way to engage them is speak about the problem or speak about the value that you create and not about what you're doing. They don't care what you're doing. They care about what you're doing for them.
Hmm.
Now, in general, I would say, your new product development or your new initiative or your new startup always start with the problem. So think of a problem, a big problem, something that is worth solving, something that the world will become a better place if you solve that. And then ask yourself, so who has this problem? Now, if you happen to be the only person on the planet with this problem, go to a therapist, way cheaper and faster than building a startup. But if a lot of people actually have this problem, what you really want to do next is go and speak with those people and understand their perception of the problem. And speak with a lot of people. Otherwise, you're going to end up with speaking with your closest friend, and then the second closest friend, and then your brother or sister, and then you will basically say, "Yeah, they all have this problem." If you speak with people that you don't know, what's going to happen is that if they don't share the problem, they will tell you, "I have no idea what you're talking about." But if they actually share the problem, what you're more likely to hear is very different. They're going to tell you, oh, no, 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 this is not the problem. The problem is, and they're going to describe their version of the problem. And when this happens a lot, this is a problem that is worth solving. So once you understand the perception of the problem by other people, only then go and build a solution. In many cases, it's validation, You can do that in no time, and it does not involve any effort or does not involve any investment that is required. And if you validate the problem, then this is going to become your mission, and you are very likely to become successful.
Hmm. In the book, you also have a qualification matrix. Can you walk us through what that qualification matrix is? Because again, I think it's relevant for everybody.
So the qualification metrics based on two dimensions, right? The first dimension, which is obvious and everyone is doing that, is the size of the addressable market, right? So if you speak about traffic jams, then you will say, okay, all the drivers in the world have that issue, and this is about a billion cars, and therefore there are a billion. The addressable market is around a billion people. And if you speak about something that is way smaller, then maybe you will say, okay, you know what, I can figure out a cure for a very rare disease. And this is going to be significant, but only for a very few people. And so the first one, and everyone is doing that, is qualifying the size of the addressable market. Most of the people, by the way, are doing that mistakenly, right? So they will basically say everyone, and it's never everyone. It's never everyone. And if you go and try to validate the problem and speak with 100 people, then you will figure out that, okay, wait a minute, there are a lot of people that have no idea what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
The second dimension, which is even more important, is try to quantify the value for a single user or a single customer. Right. So, and now we are going back into, okay, wait a minute. If this is a cure for a very rare disease, maybe there are only 1 million people on the planet with this disease, but each one of them really need that. So you're going back into trying to qualify the value, and you can qualify the value by two aspects, right? The first one is willingness to pay, right? So how much they're willing to pay for that, and then value will be associated with the money that they are willing to pay, or the money that you create for them, or the money that you saved for them. So money is good dimension. Time is another good dimension, right?
Hmm.
So, I'm going to save you an hour a day that you're stuck in traffic. Okay, that's valuable. I only have 24 hours a day, so an hour is significant, and even 10 minutes is significant. But the other way to measure that is actually the frequency of use. And if you can get to something that is being used twice a day, right? So like brushing your teeth or commuting back and forth to the office, right? Or something that has high frequency of use, that dimension is going to make everything simpler for you. It's going to make your go-to-market strategy way simpler. And so when you try to figure out something and you have large addressable market and high frequency of use, this is going to be a winner, a big winner. And not a lot of those, right? So just ask yourself, how many apps have you used yesterday? And you will end up with about 10. And then I would ask you, okay, hey, how many of those 10 have you used the day before yesterday? And you'll tell me, oh, all of them.
Hmm. Yeah. For me, the one I probably use most frequently is my chess.com app.
Your
Nothing.
10 might be slightly different than my 10, but by
Yeah,
and
yeah,
large,
exactly.
they, they
Okay, so
overlapping by a lot.
now on the qualification matrix, I guess, and again, this is applicable for people who are working inside of organizations or entrepreneurs. Um, Now, inside of organizations, there's this concept of entrepreneurship. Have you seen a lot of that taking off lately as well? I mean, do you work with any organizations who are trying to bring that entrepreneurship mindset into larger companies? Because it seems to me like entrepreneurs just have a little bit of a different way of thinking and approaching problems than people who have regular full-time jobs. So how do you bring that
Right.
mindset of entrepreneurship to somebody who has more of a traditional corporate job?
So let's go to a corporate, right, and ask yourself, how does a corporate innovate, right, and why do corporates do not disrupt? Because by and large, when you look at all the major dramatic changes in markets, they were all started by someone that has nothing to lose, an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
or maybe a new player into the market coming from a different market. But the reality is that disruption is, which is at the end of the day, is changing market equilibrium or changing behavior, is going to come from people that have nothing to lose. And by and large, corporates do not disrupt their own market. And the reason is really simple. In order to disrupt, you need to start by saying something that is, whatever we are currently doing is wrong.
Mm.
Now, I have a hard time to tell that to myself, even if I'm alone in the room. Just imagine what it's like to say that in a corporate, right? Just imagine this management meeting that the VP of something is going there and say, whatever we are currently doing is wrong, right? And no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear that. Now, by and large, when you look at what happened to markets, that there was a disruptor coming to the market, and you ask yourself, what was the reaction of the disrupted? You realize that it's always the same, right? Netflix, when they started, they actually had a lot of hard time, and they approached Blockbuster and asked Blockbuster to acquire them twice, and they said no. And in their management meeting, what they said is that whatever they're currently doing, we can do better.
Yeah.
That
But
was
the
the same with Microsoft and the first iPhone.
yeah.
Microsoft was in a position to win the mobile internet, or the essentially the smartphones, right? They
Mhm.
had the Windows mobile operating system running on all devices, all the different devices. And when Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, they basically say that will never work.
Yep. But the irony though is that all these big companies started off by entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
If you look at Sam Walton, for example, who created Walmart, if you look at Disney, who created Disney, you look at I mean, pretty much any company in the world. I can't think of any no company just started off being big. Like every company started off small and became big, and they all had that entrepreneurship mindset. And so, what happens over time? Is it hierarchy? Is it bureaucracy? Is it a different way of thinking? Is it because the founders aren't there anymore? One of the very few entrepreneurs who I think is still challenging thing is somebody like Elon Musk, right? I mean, he's still, even with Tesla, even with his acquisition of Twitter, even what he's doing with um, uh, solar power roofs and stuff like that. He's one of the few people out there who's constantly challenging, and I think has that entrepreneurship mindset nonstop. But then a lot of other people, I mean, I don't know, and I could be wrong, maybe you disagree, but to me, it seems like for a lot of others, they get these small companies, they have that entrepreneurship mindset, then the company grows, they have 100 people, 500 people, 1,000 people, and something changes and it just becomes a different company.
You're right. It's, let me try to describe the first 10 years of the journey of a startup, right? So you start with a problem or with an idea, and you try to figure out product market fit. And this journey is going to be few years, right? So it might be 5 years or so, right? And then once you figure out product market fit, which is actually measured by only one metric, which is retention, then you start to figure out the next part of your journey, which is about figuring out growth, right? And then it's going to take you 2 or 3 more years, and then you start to figure out your business model, right? Or maybe it's the other way around: business model first and then growth. And this is going to take you about 10 years, and now you're ready to take off. And when you take off, you start to become replicating everything rather than inventing everything. So the first decade is about inventing your product, inventing your go to market strategy, inventing your business model. And each one of those inventing is actually the same type of a journey, right? It's going to be a long roller coaster journey of failures, right? That's it. Long roller coaster journey of failures. And what happened, and I'll get back to that, but what happened is that you have to have the entrepreneurship spirit to try different things and keep on trying them, because it's going to be a journey of failures. Right? So at the end of the day, you're only going to be successful if you were successful more times than you failed. One more time, that's it. Right? And once you figure out everything, this is not about the journey of failures anymore. This is about the journey of replicating.
Mm.
And what you're losing is two things, right? The first one is the organization increased the fear of failures. And when you have a fear of failure, then people are not going to try new things. And when they're not trying new things, then they're not going to innovate. Albert Einstein used to say that if you haven't failed, that because you haven't tried new things before. If you're going to try new things, you will fail. And if organization is not accepting failure, then what you're doing is you build a DNA of fear of failure. People are not going to try new things. And guess what? You're not going to have no more innovation. Now, by and large, I would say I agree. Elon Musk is perhaps the most innovative entrepreneur of our time.
Yeah.
But when you look at Google and you ask yourself, okay, so how many successful products Google have built? And you will end up with a list. So not just the search, right? Also YouTube and Gmail and Google Maps and Chrome and so forth. So multiple products that turned out to be successful. But how many unsuccessful products that they have shut down? Maybe 100.
Oh, really?
So they keep on
I remember
trying.
Google Plus, they shut down. I'm trying to even remember what were some of the other Google.
So many products, right? Most of them you haven't used yet. If you would be using them, then maybe they wouldn't have shut it down.
Yeah, I guess
A
that's
lot
a
of
good point.
products that ended up that they went to the market with them and they ended up to be unsuccessful and they shut it down. So the spirit of keep on trying different things, Google still have that. Most other corporates they have way less.
Yeah.
And look, if you're a corporate guy and you tell yourself, okay, wait a minute, if I'm going to try new things, I might be successful, but I might lose my job. Then this is going to be very significant not to try new things.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
going back into these dimensions of the journey, right? And this is when you start from scratch, right? So you start your startup and you start at the beginning and you try to figure out product market fit. And this journey is going to be a roller coaster journey with ups and downs and ups and downs. And I think that I heard the best quote on that from Ben Horowitz from Andreessen Horowitz venture capital firm. And before that, he used to be a CEO of a startup, and he was asked whether or not he was sleeping well at night as a CEO of a startup. Oh yeah, I slept like a baby. I woke up every 2 hours and cried. And that's really the reality of the roller coaster journey.
Uh,
So we realize that there are ups and downs and way more than any other business in the world. There are days that you're changing your mindset from crying to hit to smiling a few times a day.
yeah. Yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, a startup might be close to death multiple times, right?
Yeah.
The
I mean, Elon
company
Musk's
usually is not
startup, he went through Tesla, right? I mean, almost went through bankruptcy and he had to fund it.
multiple times, right?
Yeah.
And then you don't even know what happened beforehand, right?
Yeah.
But that was multiple times. And so roller coaster is part of it, a journey of failures, right? And because we're trying to build something new that no one did before, right? So we think that we know exactly what we're doing, but the reality is that we don't. So we try. We try one thing and it doesn't work. We try another thing and it doesn't work. We keep on trying different things until we find one thing that does work.
Yeah.
That buys us a ticket to the next part of the journey, right? But if you
Hmm.
realize that this is the case, then there are two immediate conclusions, right? The first one is that if you're afraid to fail, then in reality, you already failed. The second one is that you really want to fail fast. Because when you fail fast, you still have plenty of time and plenty of resource to try another attempt, to build another version of the product, to take another go to market approach, and so forth. And the more attempts that you're going to make, then you increase the likelihood of being successful.
Yeah.
Just imagine that you are trying to score from half court. Now, if you're not Steph Curry and you have one shot, you are very likely to miss it. But if you have actually 10 balls or 100 balls, one of them you're going to make. So the more attempts that you're going to make, you increase the likelihood of being successful. And therefore, you really want to fail fast. Just imagine the following, right? So the biggest enemy of good enough is perfect. You don't need to be perfect in order to win the market. Just imagine that there are two twin sister companies, right? They started exactly the same day. They're doing exactly the same thing. They're making exactly the same progress. They even have twins, brothers, and sister teams, right? And one day, company A is saying, you know what, our product is really bad. It's embarrassing level. We need to keep on building that. Company B is saying, you know what, our product is really bad. It's embarrassing level. We are going to go to the market with it. From this point on, Company B is making way faster progress because they have real feedback from real customers or real users.
Hmm.
Now, occasionally I tell that to people, and they tell me, "Oh, you don't get it. This is embarrassing level. We are going to lose all of our customers." And I will tell them, "Wait a minute. You don't even have customers yet. Oh, we're gonna hurt our brand name." No, you don't have a brand name. You will have a brand name after you have a lot of users that are keep on coming back. But you will never get there if you are not going out there and getting the feedback from the users trying to use your product.
If you're listening to this podcast, I'm willing to bet that you are interested in excelling in your career. Maybe you're interested in becoming a better leader. Maybe you're trying to figure out how to future-proof your organization or to create more engaged employees. Well, this podcast might get you some of the way there, but if you really want to step up your game and get more insights, more strategies, more tips, and actionable things that you can apply, then you should head over to greatleadership.substack.com. We have a community there of tens of thousands of people from around the world who every week are getting access to exclusive and bonus CEO interviews with global best-selling authors, leadership tips and hacks, and in-depth guides that I write every single week where I'm sharing a new leadership insight, a strategy, something that I have come across that's going to be relevant and valuable to you in your leadership and career journey. So head over to greatleadership.substack.com. You are not going to want to miss this opportunity. How does that entrepreneurship mindset, what kills it off as companies get big? Right? How is it that a company like Elon
So, so
Musk's company?
one is fear of failure. The
Okay.
other one is, look, many of the companies are being measured by the street, right?
Yep.
Once they become public, and they expected to generate results quarter after quarter after quarter. And look, let's say that you have only one product, right? And this product is growing, and you're happy with it. If you're going to build a new product now, this new product is going to lose money for a long while. So just imagine, and this is usually what happens, is that a company decides that, okay, we're going to build another product. And this product is bleeding cash for a very long while, because it's going to be years to figure out product market fit, and then more years to figure out business model, and more years to figure out growth. And during this long while, one of those years is going to be very challenging for the company. And the board of directors is likely to say, "Oh, we have this division that is bleeding cash for the last 5 years, and it's not going to be profitable next year either. Let's shut it down." And what happened is that many of those initiatives are being killed, because they are being built out of the P&L of the company, and it shouldn't. The company should never be the only one that's fund or sponsor an initiative. This initiative should be spin-off, should be built in a way that you are not the only one that fund it. Because otherwise, there is more likely that you will shut it down than it will be successful.
Hmm. So fear of failure, I guess, is a kind of the big one there.
That's a big one. And the duration of innovation, right? Innovation is long. Now, if you'll
Yeah.
tell me, "Oh, no, 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 you don't get it. This time it's really different." Just imagine ChatGPT just started, right? At the beginning of the year, it just started. It's 7 years old company.
Yeah. Yeah. Co-founded by Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. I agree.
So how do you balance the disruptive innovation piece with kind of the day-to-day aspect of work? Because for a lot of people, right, I mean, especially if you have a full-time job, you're doing the day-to-day aspects of your job. If you're in marketing, you're coming up with plans. If you're in sales, you're closing deals. Because on the one hand, you have to focus on the present and get the day-to-day aspect of the business going and close deals and make money. But on the other hand, you have to focus on the future and growth and innovation and disruption and trying to do things that nobody else is doing. How do you balance those two things? Um, how do you
You
split your
don't.
time up and also mentally just think about those two different pieces?
You don't. You either do one or the other. That's it. At the
Mm.
end of the day, look, if you try to build something from scratch, this is going to require 900% of your time and 7,000% of your attention. And you simply don't have enough time to do that as a night job. Now,
Mm.
what you can do is you can, by and large, increase or reduce the fear of failure by basically saying, okay, you know what, we don't know, so we're going to try. Right? That's the general approach of trying new things, right? We don't know if this go-to-market strategy is going to work, so we're going to try. We're going to try that in small scale. And by the way, at the same time, we're going to try something else as well, and we're going to do multiple trials until we figure out something that does work. In general, if I would be meeting the chief marketing officer, and I would ask him what is the marketing, what is the growth strategy of the company, what is the user acquisition strategy of the company. What I would like to see is 50 different ways that can work.
Yeah.
Now, eventually, not all of them are going to work, right? But if you have a list of 50 different ways that you're going to try out, then I would say then start trying them out and try them out fast
Hmm.
so we can actually disqualify those that don't work.
So, for people who have, let's say you do work in a company, if you're saying you can't do both at the same time, I guess, does that mean that if you're working in a department at a company, you're either working on the innovation side or you're working on kind of the day to day side? You can't, as an employee, be expected to do the day aspects of your job, but also kind of think about disruptive innovation for your industry or your business. You have to either do one or the other, right? So that's why I guess we have
Right.
innovation departments and R&D departments, and then we have sales and marketing who kind of do the day to day side.
Which is also perfectly okay.
Yeah.
Within the sales and marketing, you will basically say, okay, we have most of the people, 90% of the people are going to do whatever we know how to do up and we did up until now. And 10% are going to try something else.
Hmm.
And so you can do that within the department as well. But you need a different focus. And focus is not about what we're doing. Focus is about what we are not doing.
Yeah, I think
These
Steve
are the hard
Jobs
decisions.
said that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And how do you know when you've approached a level where it's good enough? The idea is good enough, the product is good enough, the service is good enough. Even for me, right? I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I run a small team of people. I focus mainly on content, but even for me, right, I'm constantly trying to figure out when is it good enough to share? When is it good enough to talk about? Maybe it's not ready. And for a lot of people who are in teams and companies, they're actually creating products and services that are supported by dozens or hundreds of people, thousands, if not millions of dollars. How do you know when it's ready to go out into the world?
Right now. Probably yesterday as well.
Yeah.
By and large, we are making the other mistake, right? We are not satisfied with it. And we haven't completed the feature set that we would like the product to have. And we look at it every day and we try to make it perfect. And we don't need to, because if we will go out, then we will figure out that, okay, wait a minute, this is enough features for the people. At the end of the day, when you think about features, you realize that features is the biggest enemy of simplicity.
Hmm.
Being a good product lead is not about adding features, it's actually about removing them to create simplicity.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and this is Leonardo da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Because if you try to build something simple, that means that there are very few options there. That means that it's pretty crystal clear where do you go next. And when you have a lot of options, you create complexity. Now, a lot of options may be increasing the addressable market, but it actually creates complexity for most of the users. So, in general, I would say your product is probably ready because most people, um, their assumption is that it's not ready and they keep on prettifying it. And maybe we don't need to. Now,
Hmm.
by and large, there is only one metric, right? So you go to a small scale of people, and if they're coming back, that means that it's simple enough for them. If they're coming back, that means that it's ready. It's good enough for them. It's good enough for them. And good enough wins every time.
I like that. Yeah, that's an important mindset to have. I think a lot of people struggle with that. Entrepreneurs and even people who are working inside of organizations as a whole. Maybe one more question before we jump into the hiring and firing to create that culture of entrepreneurship. And that is, how do you create that culture of innovation? So let's say I'm the leader of a team. I'm trying to create an innovative culture in an environment. What advice would you have for me as a leader?
So there are a few things that you would like to do. First of all, is you realize that what you need to deal is with the mindset and fear of failure, right? And so, by and large, you need to encourage experimental approach, right? And so, in the "I don't know" or "we don't know" is the statement that sets that up, right? So we don't know if the product is going to be good enough or not until we try. We don't know if this go-to-market approach is going to be better or not unless we try. We have our own assumptions and we think that this one is going to work. But when you develop the state of mind that we don't know, we only have estimations and guesstimations, and we bring our experience into increasing the likelihood, but it still does not guarantee anything. Then you start to build the sense of less fear of failure, and you encourage people to try. And basically, if your management meetings are going to sound like, okay, so we don't know, we're going to try, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if someone is going to fail time after time after time after time, then maybe you'll say, you know what, this guy is unlucky. But at the end of the day, if we all agree that we don't know, then we should try.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into the Leaders Toolkit section, which is really all going to be about hiring and firing. So strategies for hiring and firing focused on how to create that kind of innovative culture. So let's start with the hiring piece. My conversation with Uri Levine continues, where we are going to talk about strategies for hiring and firing, specifically when it comes to creating that culture of innovation. We're also going to talk about the importance of hiring and firing quickly and why Uri recommends that you should always hire slightly more people than what you think you need. So if you're hiring for one engineer, he recommends that you hire two. We're going to be talking about all of that and more with these strategies for hiring and firing. This is only available to subscribers of Great Leadership Plus on Apple Podcasts. Also, I encourage you to join our Substack community if you want to get a 20% discount to that, only available for podcast listeners. Head over to greatleadership.substack.com/GL podcast. Again, that's greatleadership.substack.com/GL podcast. I know it's a complicated URL, so if for some reason you can't remember that or that doesn't work for you, just shoot me an email, jacob@thefutureorganization.com. Tell me you want that 20% discount and I will go ahead and take care of that for you. And last but not least, look what I am holding here. For those of you who are listening and you can't see this, this is a copy of my new book, Leading with Vulnerability, which is available wherever books are sold. And I just want to read you this quote from Adam Grant because I was very proud of this. Adam Grant says, "This is a thoughtful, resourceful read on how leaders can be more candid about their foibles and fears without sacrificing their effectiveness. If you've recognized the importance of vulnerability but aren't sure how to bring it into your workplace, this book is for you." Lots of other amazing testimonials on the back cover as well. You can learn more by heading to leadwithvulnerability.com. So thank you for tuning in. If you got value from this episode, please share it with somebody else who you would like to see become a better leader. I'll see you next time.